I love your story. There's so many things going on, and I'm looking forward to getting into it. Are you ready to roll, or you got questions?
No, I'm ready to roll. We're just gonna make it happen.
I love it. Improv. Autumn, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
Thank you so much, Joe.
You bet. So, before we get into your life as a filmmaker, journalist, writer, educator, I want to begin our journey with one of the most tumultuous big things that happened for human beings. 5 years ago, this pandemic was raging. So many unknowns, so many things changed. How did you ultimately survive that time, and how has it reverberated into what you do today?
Oh gosh. So I'm a single mom, and so the pandemic meant for me homeschooling three kids by
Wow.
myself while trying to work. So there was a substantive amount of chaos that happened in my house. And as an educator, I have a master's degree background in education. So educating my kids was a lot easier for me than than a lot of people. But at the same time, I also felt this huge responsibility. So a lot of my work stopped. I was in the middle of two books that I had started just shortly before the pandemic, and one of them actually just wrapped. It was for a wonderful client who was the head of several hospitals at the time, and she ended up leading the COVID hospital in where I lived. And that was its whole thing. We pivoted the book, thought that it was going to be about COVID, and then by the time it was all over, we reworked it because nobody gave a crap about COVID anymore. So we took most of the COVID out and just actually wrapped that book like 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Um, because it took a while to kind of reformulate like what, and then her life had significant reverberations from COVID. So it was really interesting as a ghostwriter that like my life during the pandemic reverberated through my kids and then through my work as a ghostwriter because I was very intimately experiencing two other people's lives whose books I was writing when it started and like how they dealt with the pandemic. One of them was really tumultuous, not the doctor, but the other one was very tumultuous. So, yeah.
Interesting. So let me ask you this. If we wanted to get to the essence of all of these things that you do right now in 2025, if I put you in front of a bunch of kids, which get the truth out of people all the time, 12-year-olds, career day, the kid in the back of the room that's curious is like, hey, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
I amplify the human experience for a living. I
Okay.
distill it down and get to the kernels of truth in the human experience. And then I communicate those to other people. And that's what I do.
I love it. What a great description. So let me ask you this. What did you want to be at 12 years old? What was your dream job?
12 years old, I was just coming out of my paleontology phase, and I really thought I was headed into like theater. I thought I was going to be an actress for a long time. I was an actress for a little while. And yeah, that would have been it. I would have said, I want to go be in movies. I want to go be on stage.
So take me back to your childhood. Where you were born and raised? What were these foundational elements of you wanting to perform, to be a storyteller, to help people tell their story? How did this happen?
So I came from a long line of really strong women. I'm a single mom now. I was also raised by a single mom and a really strong grandmother. So we had this incredible kind of matrilineal experience growing up, me and my two brothers. And they were both incredible storytellers. My grandmother used to, sit around with her sisters. She had seven, there were seven girls in her family. Five of them, including her, lived in our hometown. So I grew up hearing these women sit around tell these stories of their childhood, tell stories of their day. I was constantly in their houses and experiencing that reality. And so that experience of having these women tell these really insane stories about their lives is where it came from. And then I'm not religious currently, not in like a traditional sense, but I was raised Southern Baptist and evangelical. And church is full of storytelling. I mean, that's what it is. And it's especially when we started going to evangelical churches, those places are theatrical. They start speaking in tongues. I mean, like that is I certainly respect people's beliefs, but there is a theatricality to all of that. So definitely trace it back to that. And then I grew up in a small town in eastern North Carolina, and movies were my gateway. Like we watched movies all the time. You remember those TBS afternoon TV movies that they'd show, and um, I grew up obsessively watching those because my mom would make us come in out of the heat. She'd be like, it's my mom and grandma would be like, y'all gotta come in out of the heat. You can't play outside in the afternoon. So we'd come in and watch those every afternoon. And that kind of is the amalgamation of where I came from. I had really fantastic school teachers in my little small town. Um, but yeah, trace it back to all those strong women.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What was a movie or an actress or an actor that really impelled you, that made an impression on the way that you wanted to approach your performing career?
Uh, I was and am a huge Star Trek fan. My
Uh-huh.
mom was a big Star Trek fan. And that intellectuality, that definitely like speaks to what I want to do as a performer, as a writer. I loved the way that they delved into these deep issues that really just got my brain going. I think about Measure of a Man, which was this really famous episode in season two, where they try to find out if Data is a sentient being, right? Is he worth keeping? And that just opened my mind to philosophy. Like those kinds of things just opened my brain to these these huge ideas that seemed so far outside of this little small town I grew up in. So, I mean, Star Trek is hard to argue with for me.
Right. Yeah, it is. So, what was the first thing that you created, whether it was a performance on stage or something that you wrote down on the page that moved somebody, that made you think you made the right choice of being a creative, of telling a story, of making people moved by that kind of theater or writing?
Well, I can tell you the thing that impelled me in my adult life. So, as a kid, I performed on stage, and there were like a moment in my fifth grade play, which was the first time I really performed. I played this nerd. I had these big glasses, and I played this like nerd in this 50s play. And I remember getting the laughs, and that had a huge impact. It was put on like my school library. It wasn't
Yeah.
even like on a stage or anything. That I very distinctly remember. And then the moment that I decided to push out from ghostwriting, because I'd been a ghostwriter for many years, and that was really out of survival. Ghostwriting became lucrative for me, became a way for me to feed my kids. But I heard the audiobook version. I heard an actress like speaking the words out loud of a book that I had written for a client. That was probably 5 years ago, and I was like, "Oh my God, oh my God!" Like I'm knocking things over. I've got to do that again. I've got to hear my words come out of somebody else's mouth again. Because up until then, it had been books, and I think I'd probably written 20 books by that time. So I'm on like 30 now. Uh, yeah, that's definitely it. It's that audiobook moment.
Yeah, sure. So obviously you've had strong females around you that has inspired you, but would you say you have a hero, somebody that you unequivocally looked up to or look up to, that has inspired you to be you?
This is a cliche answer, but my mom, and
Yeah.
I know that, folks who grow up with single mom often say that. My mom is an incredible creative. She's a dumpster diver who like pulls junk out of the trash and has forever, and she now in her 70s makes the most incredible yard art, makes the most incredible outdoor art. And she doesn't sell, she doesn't do anything, but she has a creativity that is insatiable and a curiosity that is insatiable. And I do see inspiration in that she never got to really do anything with it. She grew up in a time and a place where it was just not possible for a woman to do things. My grandmother was the same way. My grandmother was an artist whose husband told her unequivocally that she could not wear pants and paint billboards. And so she gave up her career in art. And they found other artistic things, but neither of them had the capacity in their lives or the opportunity to actually do art for a living.
Wow.
Now I get to.
There was an interview with Kathy Bates at one point. She was talking about she wished her mom could have at least had a piece of the life that she's lived. It's interesting, because there's just so many moments like that just go by us, that change us forever, and you wish that could happen for others. So let me ask you this. If you can meet one person alive on the planet right now that you find absolutely fascinating, who would it be? Who would you love to meet and talk to?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. Who would I love and meet to talk to? I mean, I'm currently watching Etoile, which is Amy Sherman Palladino,
Yeah,
and she's a screenwriter, wrote Gilmore Girls and Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I would love to sit down and have dinner with her.
yeah,
She is a fantastic writer. And what I love about her is she does not stop. She does
yeah.
not take no for an answer. She has these TV shows that are out there and fantastic because she willed them into existence. Shonda Rhimes is similar, right? She willed these things into existence. Bridgerton, Grey's Anatomy. So yeah.
So, how do you balance this? What's your philosophy of balancing being an entrepreneur and a creative and having kids and a family? How has that philosophy worked for you?
You have to accept that things are gonna work out, which is really hard, but I continually, I say this to myself all the time. I have survived everything so far, so I will survive this next thing.
Yeah,
So, for instance, right now I have a client, phenomenal book, phenomenal book. For some reasons out of their control, they had to they had to kind of pause the book because they're waiting on some funding themselves, and this was an unexpected pause. And so it kind of mucks with my own finances, and I'm like, okay, how am I going to juggle this? Like this was the book project for the summer, and I think they're about to re-engage. It's been like a month that we've been paused, and I just have to be like, I have survived clients slowing payments before. I have survived the financial stress of this before, and I will survive it again.
yeah,
And you just kind of hold fast into, I've gotten this far and the world has not collapsed. And I have experienced a lot in my life, domestic violence, loss of a child, lots of things, and I survived all of it. And so I just wake up and I'm like, okay, you know what? That client's check doesn't come through today. We will be okay.
you'll be all right. So, let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, ran into the 18-year-old version of you, ready to charge out into the world, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've accumulated, what advice would you impart on that young version of you?
Um, I would say get out of North Carolina. I would say, this is horrible. I would say don't marry that boy and get out of North Carolina, that you are
Yeah,
capable of taking on the world in ways that you don't like realize. You don't have to stay here. Because I didn't have to stay here. I stayed in North Carolina to go to college and I got married at 18 and those kinds of things. I wish I had known that I did not have to, that
yeah,
I could have just gone to LA.
I get it. I totally understand. Let me ask you this. Of everything that you've accomplished and more importantly evolved to at this point in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Um, I mean, it's hard not to say I'm proudest of my kids. My oldest is going to college in New York City in the fall. He has overcome things that I cannot even imagine, and he is smart and intelligent and on the other side and living on his own. And I mean, that is something to be proud of. But professionally, I am incredibly proud of Infinity Care, which is I have a lot of books that I've written, but Infinity Care is the first script that I ever wrote. We've got some animation done. It's inspired by the life and death of my little girl. And I was a real badass for writing that piece and pushing it to make it happen. We have a long way to go before it's finished, but I'm really proud of that work.
Yeah. So everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, everyone that sees your work, that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I am supremely confident in myself. That's a hard one, confidence. There's a lot of therapy to get to that confidence, especially after some of my relationship experiences. But I'm I'm really good at what I do, and I am incredibly creative. And so I have my faults, but I don't see them so much as faults as growth points. So I wish that more people could feel as confident in themselves as I've learned to be.
So let's say you get into a room of everybody that knows you from a client level, and you can walk through all of those people and go to a podium and tell them one fun story. The first concert, wrestling an alligator, outrunning a bear, jumping out of an airplane. What would you tell that room? A fun story.
A fun story to tell. Oh, wait, I have non-disclosure agreements for a lot of my clients. I'm trying to think of like
Right.
the most fun story that I could tell. Um, Gosh, this is really strange, but one of my most fun stories is the birth of my second child.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people don't think that birth stories are fun, but my middle son was uh we all thought that there was going to be something wrong with him because he was like measuring funny in utero, and he had all these kind of weird things about him. And then his birth, I went to my midwives and said, I think I'm in labor. And they looked at me, checked me out, and they sent me home. And I lived half an hour away. They're like, go home. You're not even close. I was like, this is my second baby. I think I'm close. I got home and I I puked all over the driveway as soon as I got out of the car. And was like, there's a thing in birth called transition. It's like, I am in transition. And the midwives sent me home, told me to take some aspirin. They were like, just take some Tylenol for the birth pains. And got home and puked all over everything, and then got back in the car and went back, and he was almost born on the road between
Wow.
us and the hospital. He was almost born right there in Biltmore Village up in Nashville.
Wow.
And my ex-husband hit a curb when I was having a major contraction, and I like leapt out of the seat. I was like, "Oh my God."
Oh no.
So then he was born, and when he was born, I they gave him to me, and I held him, and I looked up and I said, "Let's do that again. That was real fun." So
That's a
yeah,
great
he was like
story.
the hardest and easiest birth, and
Yeah,
he's
that's a
a really
wonderful
good
story.
kid.
So, if anyone wants to delve into your work, they want to hire you, they want to learn more, any of the good business, where do they go?
AutumnKaren.com.
Okay, that's easy. I love it. Autumn, thank you so much. Thank you for your story. Thank you for taking time out today. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Yeah.
Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.